So in this alternate Star Wars timeline, everything is similar up until the moment when Anakin runs into the Chancellor's office to find Mace Windu and Palpatine fighting. Mace has Palpatine defeated, and Anakin pleads with Mace to not kill Palpatine so that Palpatine may stand trial. In reality, Anakin only wanted Palpatine alive so he could learn the Sith technique of keeping people from dying. But anyways, in the original timeline, as Mace Windu is about to do it, Anakin intervenes and cuts off Mace's arms, and after that, Palpatine yeets Mace out of his window. But in this timeline, as Anakin is about to disarm Mace Windu, Anakin hears a voice inside his head, the voice of Qui-Gon Jinn. Much like how Yoda heard Qui-Gon in Attack of the Clones. Qui-Gon tells Anakin to stop, which freezes Skywalker for a second, which was enough time for Mace to send Palpatine's head flying out of his window. The same window Mace would otherwise have been thrown out of. Anyways, back in the Chancellor's office, Anakin, having witnessed Palpatine get his head removed, falls back onto a chair like he did in the original timeline, staring at Palpatine's headless corpse. Anakin looks at this sight and says, "What have I done?" He says this because if he had not told the Jedi that Palpatine was the Sith Lord, Palpatine would still be alive and he may have had a chance to learn how to keep Padme from dying from Palpatine. But anyways, in conclusion, in this timeline, Palpatine is dead and Darth Vader was never born. But now, with the Jedi Masters killing Palpatine, the Jedi had a different problem: the Galactic Senate. So you see, being a Sith Lord was not illegal in the Galactic Republic. The Republic allowed for freedom of religion apparently. There was a law which was in existence at the time of the Old Republic which forbid people from becoming a Sith, but it had at some point been nullified, and during the time of Palpatine it was not illegal to be a Sith. So the Jedi could not use Palpatine being a Sith as justification for removing his head, so the Jedi had some explaining to do before the Senate. Also, you may be wondering if Order 66 can still be executed with Palpatine dead. Well, to explain that, let's look at the actual Order 66. So this is the fine print of Order 66, I guess. In the event of Jedi officers acting against the interests of the Republic, and after receiving specific orders verifying as coming directly from the Supreme Chancellor, GAR commanders will remove those officers by lethal force, and command of the GAR will revert to the Supreme Chancellor until a new command structure is established. So right here, it's pretty clear that no one but the Supreme Chancellor could execute Order 66, as far as we know. So it's probably safe to assume that the Jedi were safe from Order 66 until a new Chancellor was elected. But what about the Galactic Senate? How would the Jedi prove their innocence? Well, Palpatine was guilty of orchestrating the Clone Wars, playing both sides. The Jedi would only need to prove this before the Senate, so how would they do that? Well, in this timeline, since Order 66 is not executed, Darth Maul is actually brought to Coruscant. So in case you haven't seen Clone Wars, by the end of the Clone Wars, Ahsoka Tano, along with the help of the Galactic Republic, capture Maul from Mandalore, and as they're transporting him back to Coruscant, Order 66 is executed, and in the commotion, Darth Maul escapes. But in this timeline, Maul is brought successfully to Coruscant to testify before the Senate of everything that Palpatine was up to. But if you remember from the final episode of Clone Wars, Maul didn't exactly know Palpatine's plan. The only thing he knew was that Palpatine was a Sith Lord, and that he had plans to overthrow the Jedi. But even if Maul had full knowledge of Palpatine's plans, the Senate could argue that Maul is just a false witness that the Jedi paid off or something. So basically, Maul's testimony wouldn't be that trustworthy. If Count Dooku were somehow alive and decided to help the Jedi, that would have made matters a lot easier for the Jedi, but like in the original timeline, in this one too, Count Dooku died. So at this point, things could go in two ways. Either the Jedi would convince the Senate that the Chancellor was guilty and resume their roles as protectors of the galaxy, or the Jedi would fail in convincing the Senate and the Senate would elect a new Chancellor to execute Order 66 on the Jedi. But for this fanfiction, we'll take the light side ending and assume that the Jedi somehow convinced the Senate that Palpatine had a hand in everything. I'll make a different video exploring the other timeline if you're interested, so do let me know in the comments below. So at this point in this alternate timeline, the Jedi have successfully dealt with the threat of both the Sith Lord Darth Sidious and the Galactic Senate. And now, let's get back to the Chosen One, Anakin Skywalker. So with Palpatine dead, Anakin now needed a different way to keep Padme from dying. He hadn't lost all hope because Anakin knew that there was a restricted section to the Jedi Temple archives, and only the Jedi Masters are allowed to access this restricted section of the Jedi archives. And as for what was inside the restricted section, well, forbidden knowledge basically, including knowledge on Sith techniques, and Sith holocrons. So this is one of the reasons why Anakin wanted the rank of Master so bad, so that he could access the restricted section of the Jedi archives. So in this alternate timeline, Anakin's only hope of keeping Padme alive was to go into the restricted section of the Jedi archives and hopefully learn the Sith technique to keep one from dying. But to do that, he needed to achieve the rank of Master. So let's see if Anakin would actually get the rank of Master in this timeline. So Yoda, along with Mace Windu and Obi-Wan and the other Masters, would discuss if Anakin should be granted the rank of Master. Mace Windu would still be opposed to giving Anakin the rank of Master. Mace Windu would then explain to Yoda and Kenobi what he felt going through Anakin's mind as Mace decapitated Palpatine's head. Mace would have sensed the strong conflict that was within Anakin, which a Jedi should not have. So this is basically the reason why Mace is still opposed to granting Anakin the rank of Master. Plus, Anakin also disobeyed Mace's order to stay in the council chambers until Mace and the other Masters returned. Anyways, after hearing Mace talk about all this, Obi-Wan would remain silent, taking in everything he just heard, and then Yoda would break the silence. Yoda would be of the opinion that Anakin fulfilled the prophecy of the One, because Anakin gave vital information to the Jedi that stopped the millennia-long Sith plan to overthrow the Jedi. So according to Yoda, if it wasn't for Anakin, the Jedi would now be gone, and this would prove to him that Anakin was indeed the chosen one. In short, Anakin stopped the revenge of the Sith, basically. So after hearing Yoda talk, Obi-Wan would be convinced that Anakin was the chosen one and should be made a Jedi Master. Mace Windu would still remain unconvinced, but would not oppose to Obi-Wan and Yoda. So ultimately, in this timeline, Anakin is granted the rank of Master. Also, side note, I do know that for one to become a Jedi Master, they need to train an apprentice, and this apprentice needs to become a Jedi Knight. Obi-Wan was only granted the rank of Master after Anakin became a Jedi Knight, but in Anakin's case, Ahsoka left the Jedi Order and never became a Jedi Knight. But Ahsoka leaving wasn't exactly Anakin's fault, was it? So ultimately, the Jedi Council decides to ignore that little rule and grant Anakin the rank of Master. So this makes Anakin very happy because this means that he can now access the restricted section of the Jedi archives and go through Sith techniques that could possibly save Padme. So that night, Anakin would return to Padme and talk about how he is a Jedi Master and how he will save her. And during that night, in his sleep, Anakin would be granted a different Force vision. In this one, he sees Padme in childbirth, but instead of Obi-Wan by her side like he saw the first time, he would see himself, which would imply that the future, by its very nature, can be changed and has been changed for Anakin. Okay, so before you leave, I know that this fanfiction wasn't that great. I'm sorry about that. This is the first ever fanfiction I have made, and looking at it now, I feel like I should have put more emphasis on research when I wrote this whole thing up. I promise I will change that in the future, and in the meantime, do let me know in the comments below what fanfictions you would like to see me cover on the channel in the future, because I really want to be a Star Wars YouTuber. Anyways, that's it. Goodbye and have a good day, and stay hydrated.